I mean, comfort is important.
Yeah. I like that about us.
No bra.
No bra, of course not.
Your whole left boob has been out for the majority of this podcast. So
the tank is baggy.
It's flowy. And it's extra baggy because Alex gets like a size large. Which means that like nip slip is a real issue for her. Okay, so we've come to a realization, and we're going to share that realization with you. And that realization is that me and Alex are actually the same person. We've been the same person for like our entire lives. The more we talk about our not necessarily like the details of our childhood, but like the type of kids that we were and like what we were into, like we were into all the same things. And we share a lot of experiences and commonalities, even though we grew up in like really different areas. So that's an interesting discovery that we've made the past couple months.
Yeah, so like for instance, the other day we were talking, I don't even know how it came up. I think we saw someone skateboard or something.
Oh yeah.
And like I don't even know what they're called, but those little finger skateboards.
They're called finger skateboards.
Oh, okay. So like
literally like we see this guy skateboarding and like he's doing what all skateboarders do, and he's like trying to like kick flip down the stairs, and then he falls because like skateboarders suck. And then like at the same time, they don't, but like the ones that you see around here do. And like at the same time we were like, did you ever have the like finger skate like exact same time we said that? It was hilarious. But yeah, we both had those, and you know, because you do the same thing, right? Like you were like running it across a desk.
Yeah, it's like it's weird because it's beyond like what, like we were both into like really weird stuff.
Yeah,
like yo-yo tricks.
Yeah, like the expensive yo-yos, and you would like undo the knot to make it like spin easier, and then like do the string and like.
I used to have a yo-yo that had, and this is funny because I hate bugs. But it had, like, bugs in it. Like, actual bees. Yeah. It was, like, clear. It was a clear yo-yo. And it had, like, actual bees in it.
So hardcore. I had one. I don't know if you remember this yo-yo. It was called the Fireball. It was, like, the yo-yo.
I'm sure I had it then.
Yeah, you probably did. You probably didn't. You probably weren't into Pokemon, though. That was probably just
I was.
You
Pokemon
were?
cards, yeah.
You did Pokemon cards?
Which is weird because I'm not into that sort of, like...
Well, what was your favorite Pokemon?
Oh, I don't remember. The only one I can recall right now is Pikachu.
You don't remember, like, Charmander?
Oh, yeah. Now that you're saying it.
Jigglypuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mew?
Yeah.
That one was rare, though. If you got a pack with Mew in it.
That was, like, when I was in grade, like, 5, 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I had... Did you have them in binders?
No.
Oh. Yeah, I would get the cards, and then I would get these inserts for the like binder, and you put the cards in the inserts so it protects them. Yeah, for sure. That was me. I also had Beanie Babies.
Oh, I was a huge Beanie Babies, but I only collected the dogs.
Oh, we had all, like, I'm talking trash bags full of Beanie Babies. We had, like, the Princess Di Beanie Baby.
Oh, wow.
But, like, I think my mom...
Did you ever have, like, the mini Beanie Babies?
Yeah, the ones from... That was the only reason I would go get a Happy Meal.
My sister really liked the bear Beanie Babies. So, like, my mom would have to go out and get...
Like, stand in line for the special edition ones.
She still says, calling toy stores and stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't spoiled at all.
No. So anyways, there's that. So we thought it would be cool to, like, tell you guys... Because we both have interesting backgrounds, like, before CrossFit. And, like, there are other people who do as well. But anyways, we thought we'd tell you a little bit about ourselves and some of the similarities that we have. Mm-hmm. And then, like, how we met. Because that seems... People keep asking that. I feel like we've talked about it before, but we'll just go into some more detail.
Sure.
Yeah. So why don't you... you go first.
Well, we can kind of go together, I think. So, like, I went to a private high school, which was hard because I ski raced, which is a very time-consuming sport. You're like at the ski hill all weekend, and then we have a ski hill in town, so I was there like in the weekdays, and then I also played piano. I was forced by my mom to play piano. That's one thing we differ on.
Musical
I
ability?
am not musical at all, and Meredith is very musical. Yeah. So I was forced to play piano. My mom always said, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat as me with this. They were forced to play it growing up, and their mom told them, you're going to be so thankful one day that you learned how to play the piano. Now that I quit, like not once since the day that I quit have I thought, wow, I'm really glad I played piano.
You haven't?
I actually think back, I'm like, I can't believe I had to waste those hours on the piano when I could have been doing other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to high school at a private university, or I went to a private school basically right out of kindergarten.
Oh, you fancy, huh?
I was wearing a uniform for grade 1 to grade 12.
Can we talk about how many of those years do you think you were routinely mistaken for a boy?
Oh, so probably until grade 8. Sick. I had very short hair.
Yeah.
It was a mushroom cut, and then I buzzed it when I think I was 11 or 12.
Short.
Oh yeah, it was like a buzz cut.
Yeah.
Like an inch.
So
it was enough that it was long enough that I could like press it down to my forehead and like kind of put a pin in if I was wearing a dress so that I could look somewhat feminine. Which wearing a dress was a very rare occasion.
Yes. Great.
Yeah. So grade 12, I went to it was a very academic school. Grade 12 graduated, took a year off, then went to university.
What did you do during the year off?
I was on the national development team, for Canada alpine ski team. And so basically they had formed a team. I was pretty good at skiing growing up. Like I was kind of always one of the better ones in Alberta. And so what they did in 2000, I guess it was 6 something, they created a team with all these girls from around Canada. So like from the Quebec ski team, they pulled from every province and created, I think there were 12 of us, the 2010 Olympic development team. And we spent the whole year like traveling around Europe. We went to Chile and Argentina. We spent the whole summer training in Fernie, which is like a mountain town 3 hours away from where I currently live here in Calgary. And then after a year of that, I decided to go to school on an NCAA scholarship for alpine skiing in Alaska.
Yeah, I was going to ask where you went.
Yeah, which was like I tell people and everyone's like, wow. Alaska. And I'm like, no. Alaska is nice in the summer because you get so much like light, and if you're into outdoorsy stuff, like Anchorage is great for visiting. You get like the ocean, and then the ski resort Alyeska is like right on the ocean. It's like the ocean and then it turns into mountain.
Yeah.
So when you're driving along, you're driving like right on your right side, you see the ocean, and then on the left side just like a mountain straight up from the road. It's really cool. And then you can like hike. There's a bunch of backcountry skiing. But like when I was up there, I didn't spend any summers up there. I was always back at home for the summers. And the winters were so dreary. Like no sun. Like seasonal affective disorder is a really big issue up there.
Weren't you like so pale? You were kind of like
yeah, my mom always makes fun of me for that. Yeah, and then I had great friends there, and I did well in
Did you
school.
see any what was the wildlife situation like in Alaska?
Okay, so you would see whales in the ocean, which was really cool. That was kind of rare, but I definitely did see a couple. And then moose were big, like they were always on campus and stuff.
What's the plural?
It's not meese.
Is it mooses?
I think it's mooses.
Okay.
But I always said like, okay, well a goose in plural is geese.
Yes.
Mouse in plural is mice.
Yes.
Why isn't moose meese?
I don't have a good answer for that.
Anyway. So the reason, so they had to, like, moose can be dangerous. Mooses, I think moose plural is just moose.
Like deer?
Like there's a herd of moose.
I'm going to Google this.
Yeah, so if you saw them on campus, they always said, if you see one and it's charging you, run around like to the other side of a tree, and then you're basically playing coy with it. So if it goes left, you go left. So the tree is kind of always in between you.
But how long does that game go on?
I don't know. I never played it.
Like, how does that end? Like, someone just gets tired of playing.
Probably
you hope that it's the moose.
It was really quite the experience up there. We had like ice days. Like the weather's crazy. It's very wet because you have the ocean.
Yes.
So you would get like really wet snow, and then it would get really warm, and then it would freeze. Like the next day it would be like way below freezing. And then it would get so cold some days that your boogers would freeze. You know that feeling? You walk outside and you can't even like breathe in because it's just like...
First of all, it's called a booger.
It's a booger.
Okay. But yes, I'm familiar. And
then there was one year where a volcano erupted. And so ash was like, you had to wear a mask and stuff. You didn't have to, but you were recommended to. And like, don't go running outside. And like ash would be covering, like all the snow was kind of brown.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
I mean, like,
it was a good experience.
Cool. To back up, I confirmed. A plural of moose is moose.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. Carry on.
So then, my sister, and this is relevant because it kind of overlaps a bit with Meredith's story slightly. But when I was in my sophomore year, my sister was diagnosed with leukemia. She was 2 years younger than me, so she would have been 19. And there was a plan for her to get healthy again, and she did everything. Like, she was sick for quite a while, like lost all her hair, had to get chemo, and then she got a bone marrow transplant, which is kind of like the last thing you get. And then I think when you have leukemia, or I guess any cancer, your immune system is very, very suppressed. And so any kind of like virus or infection can be like deadly. And they think that she may have something happened where she got a virus in her heart, and it just basically right when we thought she was going to get better, she just got really, really sick. And then she passed away, which was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And that was in August. And 2 weeks later, I went back to school to finish up my senior year. And that was just like, I thought I was okay. But I don't think you can be okay. I was just like angry that whole year. Like, I was really sad. Like, anything would trigger me. Like, I just hadn't dealt with any of like the grief. And I got like really bad like stomach problems, like just digestive issues. Like, I started exercising a lot. I was like with the ski team, but I was also like exercising and just like trying to keep sane, like kind of shut everybody out because no one really knew how to like respond. And it was really fresh and no one really did respond. And I felt like really alone. And so that year was pretty tough. It was pretty bad. And so after that, I took the year off just to kind of like get better. And that's when I found CrossFit. And like I had developed like a lot of really bad, like I've always been very like an anxious kid, like a very anal kid. And they just got way worse when I was like that last year, just was really bad. And then so that year I kind of like tried to like spend a lot of time with my family, ran a marathon in honor of my sister and my grandma. My grandma actually passed away about 2 weeks before my sister did with the same disease. So she was diagnosed shortly after my sister got diagnosed and then died. She actually died on my sister's birthday, which was June 29th. And then my sister died a couple weeks later on August 15th. So that was like a double whammy. the worst double whammy. And then I studied for the LSAT and got into law school, and then went to the U of A, which is University of Alberta, 3 hours away, and went to law school, and that was very tough. Thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I took another year off, actually. So in law school, like right out of the gate, you're interviewing with firms. And I got a job in my first year at a really great firm here in Calgary. One of my first choices, actually. Funny, it was actually where my mom started out. And then I spent the summer working there in my second year of law school, and was like, I don't really know if I like it. Both my parents are lawyers. My mom's like, you'll be fine. Like, the summer's kind of weird. You don't really get a taste for the work. And then it turns out that I actually didn't like being a lawyer, working in a law firm. Didn't discover that until later. So I went to the games, I think that year. 2015. So in my second year of law school. Somehow qualified for the games. And then, wanted to make it back. So I'm like, that was so awesome. So I finished law school, missed making it back in 2016. And then was like, I'm going to take the whole next year off. But that's not really, once you get a job, you're kind of set. As soon as you finish law school, you start working there. You're hired for that year as an articling student. And so I kind of had to say to them, hey, is it cool if I, take a year off and then come back the next year? Which no one really does. And they said yes, which was great. I think I kind of explained my situation and what my goals were and things. And I didn't make it back to the games, but that was the year we met and hung out. And yeah, I guess I'll stop there and then you can catch up.
Yeah. So where do I start?
I don't know, high school, university.
Okay. I went to public school, but most people in the U.S. do. I went to a really big public school, but it was one of the better ones in the county. And when I was in high school, my main sport was swimming and soccer. So actually, I started swimming when I was like 6. Those little tiny kids that you see swimming in meets. You're like, oh my god, they're so adorable. That was me. But I always like to joke that I peaked at my swimming career peaked at 13 or 14, because I stopped growing. So I'm I'm pretty short for a swimmer. I'm going 5'4". So I was good, but not good enough to go to a big school, and I wanted to go to a big school for university. So I went to North Carolina State University and go Pack. And I started out actually as a pre-vet. I was convinced that I wanted to be a veterinarian. And so my options for vet school, there aren't a ton of vet schools in the country, and NC State happens to have a really good one. And then,
what did you take in university?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Oh, right. You're not in university yet.
No, I'm I just got to university. Sorry. So my options for vet school were NC State and then University of Tennessee, which actually I really wanted to go to UT, but out-of-state tuition's quite pricey. So went to NC State and was pre-vet. So I was an animal science, equine science major with a pre-vet concentration. So basically all about horses all the time. And it was actually really cool. Because you basically jump into labs straight away. It's a pretty intense curriculum. And I wanted to be a vet because I really liked horses, which is I think the reason why most people go to vet school, unless maybe you really like dogs.
Animals.
Yeah. And so that was me, and I was taking all kinds of courses on that and doing labs, and I worked on the chicken farm. I did a rotation with the pigs. I did a really cool horse training rotation, and then kind of the longer I stayed in that program, I stayed in that program for almost 2 years. It kind of started to dawn on me, or I realized talking with my advisors that vet school is like super competitive, almost more so than med school, because there just aren't very many. And so unless you're just like an academic phenom, which I was not, unless you're just like really, really good, you go like you basically go on a wait list, and it takes you 3 to 5 years after you graduate to get into vet school. And then a lot of people just don't, like they stop applying or whatever. And then you're just stuck with an animal science or an equine science degree, and, doing whatever you can do with that. And so I realized that, maybe that wasn't the career path for me, and then like, okay, so you rack up all this like student debt with, the cost of vet school, which is expensive. And you graduate, and in North Carolina anyways, unless you go work on like one of the really big pig farms, which I hate pigs. I don't like working with them. Unless you go work for one of the pig farms, you're going to make like just pennies. Like you're just not going to make any money. So now you're in debt for a long time doing something that you love that you'll actually probably end up hating because you're not making any money. So I decided to switch my major to like biological engineering. I like really like biology. I really like molecular biology, microbiology. Like I was fascinated with that. So I switched to this program, and then you kind of have to decide right away, like, are you going to go, like with that program, are you going to go into biofuels, which I had no interest in, or kind of like biopharmaceuticals, which I thought were really cool. So I did that, and basically was told there's like, you won't graduate in 4 years. Like there's just no way that you can wait until your sophomore year, change into a like engineering curriculum, and then graduate. And I was like, screw that. I don't want to be here for 5 years. So I just loaded up like all of my semesters and summer courses and made it out in 4 years. Said, tell me I can't do something and I'll show you that I can.
Summer courses were the best.
I actually really liked it. I took both of my organic chemistries I took over the summer, and my first biochemistry, which it's great because like if you're good at retaining information, which I've always been, like it's just like you get a ton of it all at once. You do a 5-hour lab a couple times a week, and you're done in 8 weeks.
I think I did like almost 1 or 2 courses over the summer, like online, online options. I think like logic was one of them I took because I minored in philosophy.
Yeah.
And it was so nice. At the end, my senior year, like I was just taking like electives in my final semester.
Oh, that sounds nice.
I took bread baking and wine tasting.
Yeah, I remember you told me about that.
Those are only like 1 credit.
Yeah.
And then I was a TA for 1 course, so that's like an extra credit. Yeah. But anywho.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And then, so I graduated. I minored in. So I ended up taking a lot of like advanced microbiology classes. So I ended up with a minor in like biotechnology, biomanufacturing, and genetics. So because I really like the lab courses. So we did tons of stuff like the lab. Like NC State's kind of known for its like engineering and laboratory curriculum. So I spent a lot of time in labs. But it was cool. I did like a stem cell manipulation class, which was, or lab, which is really cool. Because you basically take a pluripotent stem cell and you get
Yeah, but can you bake cinnamon buns?
No, I can't. Leave me alone. So, anyways, I was a part of some like professional clubs when I was in school, and like I didn't graduate with like the greatest GPA, partially because I was cramming a ton of course load in. So it's like you can only do so well, right? Mm-hmm. But I networked my ass off with these like, so in Raleigh there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies in that area. It's kind of a hot spot in addition to like Boston and San Diego. And there was one that I really wanted to work for because it was like, it's kind of like they were the newest. They had kind of the most exciting programs. They were really involved with our university, and I got a job there. It was Biogen IDEC. They're not called Biogen. They took the IDEC off. So I got a job there, and I graduated on like May the 10th, and then like I started my first day of work like 3 days after that. It was like graduate on a Friday, I'm in the office on a Monday. So no gap year for Meredith. But I was so excited. I was like so excited to work for that company. I'm like a very obsessive person. And so I hadn't really gotten into CrossFit. This is 2010. So I wasn't doing CrossFit. I was cycling and running. And so I tend to, like, whatever is the most important thing in my life, I obsess over that. And that was work. And it was working for that company. And so that was my obsession for like a couple of years. I didn't start doing CrossFit until 2012. So basically 2010, 2012, obsessed with work. And it was fun because you're in the lab. It was a really like young group. So it was a process, like a research and development group, a process development group. So the hours are kind of brutal because I was working in cell culture, which was my background. And you're dealing with, and I always joke like my nutrition coaching and consulting started when I was in the lab, because a lot of what you're doing is you're monitoring the nutrition of these cell cultures. So this, like what we did and what the company did there was you use genetically engineered cells to manufacture protein therapeutics. So like monoclonal antibodies and like fusion proteins, things that are used to treat disorders like multiple sclerosis. They had several in clinical trials for ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, dementia, Parkinson's. They kind of were in the neurodegenerative autoimmune space. And so you're monitoring the cell cultures and making sure that they're healthy enough to produce the protein that you want and the concentration that you want. And a lot of that has to do with what you're feeding them and how much you're feeding them, when you're feeding them, are they getting enough oxygen? And so that was kind of what I did. We figured out how to grow petri dish, kind of like R&D sized cell cultures in a pilot scale so that you can run them at 10,000 liters in a like commercially viable process.
Yeah, simple enough.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
I always joke
I
spent a lot of time thinking about bubbles going through liquid. So that was it. I was obsessed with that. I got promoted a couple of times. I was like, within 3 years kind of traveling around to conferences. I went to San Francisco a few times, was back and forth between Boston and Raleigh. Like our company was headquartered in Cambridge, so I spent a lot of time in Boston. I don't know, it's a really cool, like I don't think back and wish that I hadn't done that, even though it was like, yeah, it would have been cool to start CrossFit in 2010. But like also it was kind of cool to have my job. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and I was married, but we've already told that story, so I'm not going to like get into the details of that again.
Yeah.
Let's just say I was more obsessed with my work than I was my marriage for reasons that had nothing to do with him. And so I got involved with CrossFit in 2012, and it was extremely part-time at first. Like it was something I went and I did after work. And then that kind of started to become a bigger part of my life around like 2015. And things kind of came to a point in 2016 where I was like, hey, I would like to take some time away from my day job to train a little bit more and focus on competing. Kind of always was gonna like go back, and I had a position waiting on me to go back. Like my boss told me to come back whenever I was ready. I didn't go back. And that's so I took that year off, and then we connected the first time we met was summer 2016, and that would have been when you were doing your final year, or was that your gap year?
I just finished law school.
Okay, so that was the beginning of your gap year.
Yeah. So yeah.
So I think the interesting thing, and we'll actually I'm going to wait and we can talk about that when we talk about what you did for work for a while. But yeah, the first time that we connected was 2016 at the games. We ran into each other. We've also told this story, so we don't need to get into details about the oogly eyes and
you running up to me and
yes, fangirling,
stumbling over your words.
Don't be rude. So anyways, we've talked about this before. We reconnected at Wadapalooza. What do you want to talk about your articling year. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, we were talking the other day, like, so even like this is kind of just like funny things, but we both at one point had like basically the same car. So like every time we see, so I had a GMC Jimmy.
And I had a Chevrolet Blazer.
Which they're the same car.
And we're talking like 1999 or 98.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was like one of the worst cars. Like the least fuel efficient. Like if you gun it, you can actually watch the fuel gauge drop.
Yeah.
And you still weren't going any faster.
And then, I guess like, well, a lot of the same cars probably end up having the same problems. And like one of those things is like the air conditioning breaks.
Yes.
And so we reminisce about that. But it's funny, like we're reminiscing together, but like we didn't even know each other.
I know. We both have this stupid car that has no air, just like melting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a big difference between us, like I had a sister, as I mentioned, and like we were so competitive.
Yeah.
And like I'm like I said, also so type A. And so like my things are my things. And like anytime my sister like stole something of mine or like was accidentally wearing one of my socks, I would just like freak out on her. Like very possessive over my things. And then, like, the way I see Meredith with her sister, like, just, like, her sister wanders into her closet, like, grabs whatever she wants.
We just, like, share everything.
Yeah, and I'm like, what?
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, so we both have, not around the same time necessarily, but you lost your sister. I lost my mom in 2015. So there's that kind of, like shared, sense of like you're losing someone who you shouldn't lose that early in life. And I think like it kind of like hardens you up a little bit because you're like part of the reason like you get older and you become over time naturally a little bit more stress hardy. And it's shocking when you're that age, you know, in like your early 20s to lose someone who is that close to you. It's not, you're not like emotionally or mentally prepared to deal with it. And I certainly wasn't. And so I always wonder what effect that has had on me as an adult, or like if there's been any effect as an athlete. And we've kind of discussed this before in the past, and like we don't really know, but it's one of those things that it's hard to, if you haven't experienced that type of loss, it's very difficult. And it's probably the reason why a lot of your friends in Alaska didn't do anything or say anything, because it's like you don't know, it's very hard to understand what that feels like.
Yeah.
And so and then again, like if you're the person who's lost someone, you don't know what's even normal to be said. You just like, you want something said, you don't know what. So I remember feeling a lot of the same things, except I wasn't alone in Alaska. A little bit different.
Yeah.
But so there's that as well. But then, so I think, and we can talk about this next. We obviously we've talked about our coming out stories, which are similar in their own ways, different because of, I was married and you weren't.
Yeah.
But I really like, one of the things I really like about you and I like about us is that we both have experience in a professional role, which makes you better communicating, I think, and it kind of just helps to understand how the world works outside. Especially, like I find this CrossFit bubble is so small, and you kind of, I think people forget like there's a big world outside of CrossFit. And it's actually like, it's where everything happens. And so it's like to be a part of that and to have an identity that exists or existed outside of CrossFit, I really like.
Yeah, I think, and I've mentioned this, we spend so much time together. Like we are together, I would say 24/7. Like maybe, like it's actually crazy. The only time we don't spend time with each other is like when one of us is showering. It's like we literally move around as a unit.
Yeah, we
and
do.
like we do argue, but it's like I think we have a lot of the same experiences, so we're very similar in a lot of ways. And then in the ways that we're different, we're working through those. But it even how we do, like we both kind of got good at CrossFit while having this other thing in our life.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. We're still, fairly competitive in CrossFit, but we also have this business. And I think the ability to be good at or focused on two different things is helpful. Like I think I would be frustrated if maybe you weren't on the same page as me.
Yeah.
Or you didn't have a similar work ethic as me. And I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
We work well together.
Yeah.
But
like the way we work is very different.
Yeah. You like leaving things to the last minute.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just better at doing things on the fly. No, but it's funny to see how effective people can be in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've always been that way. It's not necessarily like I usually have a plan. Like I don't fly by the seat of my pants. I couldn't have done the job that I had without like being able to plan. But I would say I do the bare minimum amount of planning with my life in general. And it's just like I like it that way.
Yeah.
And I have you. And
yeah, I do all the planning.
Yeah, it works for me.
Many hours or days in advance. I was that person who like would do the assignment when it was given and like just have it done before I was that person in university who could go to a movie the night before an exam because I had kept up on all my readings and stuff that I didn't even need to study that hard.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like that. Like if something needs to be done, I just have to do it right then and there. Because I can't put it off. And when something like needs to be done the next day, I wish I could do it now.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of a procrastinator.
See, I am the opposite of that. I wouldn't say it's procrastination. I think procrastination's a problem.
Yeah, you still get everything done.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous.
To you, it probably feels like procrastination.
Yeah.
But it's the way that my brain works and my internal schedule works.
Yeah.
But, everybody's different.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess when we met in 2016, it was at the games briefly and Meredith was still married and I was dating somebody at that time.
Was it a girl?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then we just kind of like I think we started, I may have kind of told part of the story, I think we did. We started chatting a bit more.
Yeah.
Like on Instagram, I guess.
Well, I think what first happened is you liked one of my posts. And I was like, oh, okay. She likes what she sees. And then it was like we didn't chat for a long time. And then like later in the year, when I was no longer married.
Yeah. Right after you got a divorce.
Yeah. It
wasted no time.
No, that's not what happened. I can tell you what happened.
Okay.
That's not what
All right. Yeah, right. You had something in between there.
Yeah. But I messaged you about Wadapalooza and then we connected there. And spent the bulk of that week trying to puzzle out if the other one was gay.
Mm-hmm.
And we had our first date in Wynwood with the paleoethics guys.
Yeah.
So we went out with those guys and went to a club and went dancing. Still had no idea. I was like, I think she's gay. And I think you thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And like there was definitely some tension going on.
But the weekend in Miami, I was competing as an individual. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but just in case you didn't listen to the other podcast. And Meredith was competing on a team, and like I was not like I can multitask, but I was paying attention to the competition. But I've always been one of those people where I'm very focused when in the moment, but I almost like things to keep me distracted when I'm not in the moment. And I think having you at Wadapalooza and like hanging out with you and your sister and your friends kept me very relaxed, and I was like, okay, it's time to compete. Let's compete.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how I've been through my whole life. Like, all right, if I'm not training, like I want to keep myself busy doing something else. Like if you're constantly thinking about training, like you're just going to get worn down. Yeah. Or at least that's the way I am. So I ended up having a great weekend at Wadapalooza.
Well, you won came second on the
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell this story. This is like, you know that like you have moments when you meet somebody, or like after you're in a relationship where you're like, did I love that person in that moment? Like, is that possible? And the moment is this. So Wadapalooza always programs these workouts, and they want to take pictures of girls doing workouts in bikinis. Like, it's a thing. And so the workout was, I think it was it a run, swim, run workout?
Yeah, I mean, that's an assumption you're making about Wadapalooza.
Okay, but I think that's the case. Because those pictures do end up
everywhere.
On there. Yeah. And it's fine. Like, girls have great bodies. I would, like, you can't blame them for wanting to plaster them all over the place. And you also can't blame girls for wearing, like, athletic bikinis to show it off. Like, whatever. I've done it.
Okay.
It's all good. So the event's a run, swim, run, and it's like maybe like a mile on the true form, and then a swim, and then a mile. I don't know. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it was shorter on the true form, but anyway.
And so here come the final heat of ladies, you know, coming out. Everybody's got their like cheeky swimsuit on and their bikini tops. Most people do not have their caps on yet. Those are going to go on after the true, because you're going to get your picture taken. It's very important to remember that. The cap is not on. You know, hair is braided, looking super fabulous. And then here comes Alex. Cap is already on. You were wearing like maybe a sports bra.
I was.
And then was wearing Under Armour biker shorts. And I'm not talking like booty shorts. I'm talking like most of the way to your knee biker
like
shorts.
Half. They're like, yeah.
They are long. They are longer than any shorts that you have ever seen a female CrossFitter wear. And I remember I was like, I love her. She means business.
In my defense, I don't think I knew what like Body Glide was before that. Like since then, I'm fine working out and running in a bikini because I can put Body Glide. But like, I don't want to run on a true form when I'm like wet in a bikini when my legs are gonna chafe. It's uncomfortable.
That's fine.
Like, I don't even have the biggest legs, so I'm like, how are these other girls doing it?
Yeah. It was, I don't know, it's made me really happy.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever posted one of those photos.
We should get one.
I think I have posted one of me in a bikini at last Wadapalooza, running in the sand.
When you ate it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was after I ate it.
Yeah.
But.
So that was kind of a moment that we had.
Yeah. And then it was, we were talking a lot, texting before we actually met in Miami, and planned. I was like, I'm gonna stay a couple extra days in Miami. Do you want to stay with me? And I didn't really know her, so I was like, well, first off, like, you're not super weird, are you? Like, you're fine texting, and I can see that, but like in person, you're fine also. I think I asked you that.
You did. I was like, I mean, who's gonna say no?
I'm gonna stay the night for like three nights with this person that I've never really met in person.
Yeah.
But you assured me that you weren't super weird and it would be fine.
Yeah, I think I said, well, I'm like, isn't everybody a little weird?
Yeah. So, I think that's where we had a great time.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I don't really like Miami. Like, it's just not my favorite city. But it's kind of this place now that is weirdly special.
Yeah.
Because of our history there.
Yeah.
And even like not this past year when we did Wadapalooza because we came straight back, but the year before, like, we spent a couple of days and like went to Nobu and had we did the cruise too, but so then we stayed in Miami after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, had a great time. And then after that, it was kind of funny, like I didn't know like what was gonna happen after Miami. Like, you know, when you're dating, you meet someone and they live really far away, which you did. Like, Calgary is not close to North Carolina. I was super unsure about like if we were going to see each other again, what that was going to be like. And I think you got back to Calgary, I got back to North Carolina, and I owed you for the hotel room or something. I think that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can deliver kind of joking. I was like, I can deliver you a check, like hand deliver it. And I think you said like, yeah, I would like that. And so that's what I did. Yeah. I flew to Calgary, maybe like...
It was in February.
It was like 3 weeks after we got back from Miami. It wasn't even a month.
Yeah.
And I brought you the check for the hotel. And that kind of was where everything started, was the trip after.
Yeah. Like I was always... Like, one thing I really felt, and that was the whole time in Miami, I just was like, this person, I feel like I've never felt so comfortable so quickly with somebody. Like, it was like a feeling like I've never, and even to this day, I constantly am like, wow, like, I never filter anything I say with you. Like, you get me. Like, even if I say something, I'm like, oh, you know, I didn't mean that. And you're like, yeah, of course. Like, I don't have to... Like, I just feel accepted, like, every part of me.
Yeah.
And even as, like, our relationship starts develop, like, we get more and more, like, down the line, it's like I feel that you start even discovering more of my things that I've maybe somehow kept a secret from you, and you still just, like, accept that. And then I think that's me partially learning, like, what it's like to be in a long-term relationship, because I've never been in one for this long.
Yeah.
But, like, right from the start, it was, like, that whole time in Miami. Like, I don't know how I could spend... I've never been able to spend that much time with somebody without getting annoyed, and not once. It was just, like, I wanted to, like, hear you talk and, like, be around you and talk to you. And just, it was... like, I think... It was... Yeah, that was a great trip. I've never felt that before.
I think there was a lot of things that year that... worked out really well for us. And if it had been different, I don't know, like, I like to think that we would have ended up together regardless, but like, it just so happened that you had taken the year off, like, you had taken that gap year between law school and going to work, and then it just so happened that I was like, I had been managing a gym, but I wasn't doing that. Like, I was also kind of in between finding you know, whether or not I was going to go back to work, but I was just training and having a good time. So we both just happened to have, like, an abundance of free time and, like, the ability to travel.
Yeah. I think, like, even throughout Miami, as much as I felt that connection to you, there was always in the back of my head, I'm like, well, it's too long distance.
Yeah.
Like, it's too far. Like, I always am, like, worst case scenario. I'm like, it just wouldn't work. Like, how could anyone ever, like, plus I was starting this, like, really demanding job in August. I'm like, it just can't. It can't work. Like, I'm not going to date someone new long distance during that time. Like, it's not feasible.
Yeah.
But you were, like, I think, I never really pushed back. I was just like, we'll see how it goes. And then we spent the whole summer, and it was basically like, all right.
I would book flights to Calgary without a return. I'd be like, let's see. Like, I'll just get there and then decide, like, how long I want to stay, and then book to come back. And then you were in, like, you would come to Raleigh and kind of do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was just back and forth like that.
Yeah, like that summer, we didn't travel to each other. We just traveled with each other to different places.
Yeah, like, we went to Toronto together. Like,
for Pride.
In between Calgary and Raleigh.
We went to the games together. We went... Where else did we go?
We went down to, like, due to that competition in South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great summer.
Yeah, and then shit got real in, like, August.
Yeah.
That's when you dumped me.
Yeah. We talk about that already?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of natural, like knowing how you are now and the way that you have trouble foreseeing situations and, like, how things can work out. It made sense. Like, it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. Like, I have to, you know, go article and do this with Blake's, and there's just not going to be, like, you don't fit into that.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, like, I remember telling you maybe during the summertime at one point, I was like, hey, look, like, I'm a crazy person. Like, I tried to tell you. I was like, I'm crazy. Like, when I am under stress, I'm not okay. Like, I've never managed stress well.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, you were like, it's
fine.
And you kind of, like, brushed it off. Like, how bad could it be, really?
Yeah.
And then you ended up, finally moving here in December after
I think
a couple visits.
That was something that stressed you out, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, I was in a point where, okay, I'm, like, I kind of needed to go somewhere. I was done, like I was going to be done living in Raleigh. I didn't really want to move back to Greensboro, but I didn't want to move home. I've never moved home. Not like I was going to live at home, but that's just like, I didn't want to live in Greensboro. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, well, I would very much like to live in Calgary because I really like you. And I think that we should live in the same place. But if you don't want me to live in Calgary, like I'm going to move somewhere else. And then I'm going to be in that place for at least a year. And so I was looking at like Denver. I was looking at other places in Canada. I was looking at Vancouver. I can't afford Vancouver. And so I think I was inadvertently kind of pressuring you into like letting me into your life when you were like, well, what happens if she moves here and then we break up?
Yeah.
And
I think that's probably something that a lot of people who are long distance struggle with. It's like, hey, now somebody has to pick up their life. And like, granted, your life was kind of already picked up already because you were wanting to move.
Yeah.
But someone's picking up their life and like moving to a whole different, and for your case, a whole different country for you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm not ready for this. Like, and I'm never again, like I'm a good person, but like I struggle with certain things, and change is one of those things also. Yeah. So like not only knowing that I was gonna have to like change my training like for this work, like work was gonna be crazy. It's stressful already, and then on top of that, like now I'm gonna be like managing a relationship, and in my mind felt responsible for it because it was like, okay, now it's kind of on me because you know
it was.
And we had broken up once, and it's like
Well, it wasn't a real, you were like, you need to go, but I'm going to talk to you next week. It was like a soft breakup. It was like you wanted space, but you didn't actually want to break up with me because you missed me. It was like, it was a weird breakup. You can ask Jordan about that. She knows. It was just, and it took a lot of effort to like get to Canada. Like, you can't just go to Canada. You can't, as an American, you cannot just, I'm going to go live in Canada. Like, that's not how it works. They're attached, but you don't get to come and go. You can spend 6 months there as a visitor, and then they kick you out. It's the same rule in the U.S. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So it was, for me, it was finding a way, because for some reason it's also, like, the Canadians have a list of countries that it's very easy to get a work permit, and the U.S. is not on that list. And so I had to find this kind of, like, back way to get, it was technically I was on a 1 year, like, a travel visa, but it was an open work permit, so it allowed me to like coach some CrossFit and like live and work and pay taxes. And I could renew that once. And so it bought me, like, I essentially had 2 years. And then just kind of immediately, like, it was crazy. Like, I had to immediately start applying for permanent residency because, like, once that 2 years is up, that work permit is no longer renewable. You have to get out.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started that, like, the permanent residency process right away, which was a whole ordeal. If you've never, like, most people won't go through that process, but it is an incredibly long process.
And expensive.
Yeah. And so many people, like, start to finish, it's about $3,000 in fees and things.
Meanwhile, like, she was, like, busy applying for this thing to stay here for longer, and I'm like trying to break up with her every week because I'm
so stressed.
So
I'm like, no, you don't want to break up with me, this is just work stress. Meanwhile, like, spending all this time and money on the PR application. Like, people normally hire lawyers and consultants to do these applications because they're that complicated, but I was like, nah, I got it. It was like a full-time job getting that thing done. And then it was supposed to only take 6 months because because of my, like, work history and education, I qualified as, like, an express entry, and it still took over a year. It was like, I think I completed that registration in August of 2018. It was just after the games. I remember it was like the week we got back, and then I submitted PR application, and then it wasn't approved until the following, like, November 2019. It took forever.
Yeah.
And they don't tell you, there's no update. Like, you're just, like, sort of sitting in limbo. I remember talking to, like, your friends, like, about how, like, well, she didn't know how long it was supposed to take, and like, well, you can do this to find out.
And meanwhile, I'm like slaving away at this job, which, as much as I love the work, like the law is so interesting, and like you're so challenged, and you feel so accomplished at the end of the day, and you're learning so much, like, it was just so hard, like, wow.
They kind of made it hard though.
Yeah,
like,
articling is kind of supposed to be hard. Like, you're supposed to be there, like, you're kind of expected to be there long, like, even if you're like long nights, early mornings, like, even if, like, you're just like, they expect your life to be that job, and I don't think I was necessarily ready for that, because I had other things like CrossFit and health and you and balance. I didn't necessarily fit in with that group. Yeah. I didn't not get along with any of them. I just didn't fit in. And the whole thing I just was not, it wasn't good for me. Yeah. Like, it wasn't good at all. Like, I had certain really good days at work where I'm like, wow, I learned so much today. Like, that's awesome. But like, the whole lifestyle was just not the right thing. And I think we talk about this and how kind of like Meredith too, even though she kind of loved her job, there was this, like, there wasn't any balance. Like, it was really hard to manage anything else in your life when you have a job like that.
And as soon as
if you don't love your job so much that you're willing to compromise everything else in your life, then it maybe isn't the right job for you.
Yeah, and that's what it got to that point where, like, my job was my life. Mm-hmm. And then I started to do other things, and then, like, when you need balance and it's time for balance and you're doing other things, you're kind of the odd one out. And so then, like, I stopped fitting in with my group and the people who I work with because, I structure my day and my work in a way that allows me to do other things, while my team, they roll into work late, they work late, they go out together after work, mm-hmm. and like go get a beer, and like I wasn't that person anymore. And so it becomes very awkward.
Yeah.
Even though I like the people that I work with, I really like my boss, but it's like they can tell that this is not my sole priority anymore.
That was exact. It's like it's a special feeling.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it's like these people who it is their whole life, it is their sole priority, and they almost judge you for having they're like, well, how could anything be more important than this? Yeah. And it was like, you worked at a really prestigious firm. I worked at the company that everyone wanted to work for. And so it just didn't click with people. Like, why would you ever want to walk away from that?
Yeah.
Like, it just.
And when I did walk away, when I was like, I don't want to be considered for a hire back, I think, like, my principal, like, my mentor's mouth was just hanging open. And he said to me, he's like, are you sure? You sure you don't want to take some time to consider this? I'm like, you think I would come to you and tell you this without taking time? Like, I've been thinking about this for like 2 months.
Yeah. I remember my experience is a little bit different. I remember telling my boss, who was a mentor of mine for many years, and she understood. Like, I think she always respected what I did, and she told me the story, and she's just like an incredibly brilliant person, like the type of person you want to grow up to be. And she told me the story about how in university and college she was a dancer, like a ballroom dancer, and she danced with a company, and she had an opportunity after she graduated she basically had to make a decision. Like, she could go into the professional workforce, or she could go be a part of this dance company. And like, dancers, they don't have long careers. And she decided not to be a professional dancer. And so she told me that story, and she was like, I really respect what you're doing. It's something like, she's like, when I think back to that decision, I often think that I made the wrong decision. And so it was nice, like, for me at least, to hear that come from somebody like her, who was extremely successful in like the professional way that I was kind of striving for, and then change paths. And so, like, even though I think she, like, her work was her life, she understood, and she was the only one that understood, but she was the only one that mattered, because she was the person I had to turn my letter of resignation into.
Yeah. I think when I was coming to the decision I had you who had been through it and understood where I was coming from, which was huge. Like, again, like, you understood, even when I knew I wasn't going to continue working there, I still had to, like, be there for the last couple of months of my article. And we both had similar experiences where, like, our job was, like, wrapping up, but you still kind of had to be there.
Yeah, like, you're kind of coming off projects. There's nothing, no one's going to give you anything new to work on.
Yeah, and it's, like, awkward because you don't need to be in the office, but you are.
Yeah.
And it's, like, no one's really talking to you, but you're there, and it's just like, oh, it's like, I hate thinking back to that time, because I'm like, not that person. I'm not that person who just kind of, like, hangs out, like, anyway. So I was stressed about that, and but I remember at one point, this was before I had decided to leave that firm, I remember saying to Mary that I was mad at some point, and I was like, well, what are you gonna do what are you gonna do? You're gonna get a real job? Like, you're just going to keep doing this nutrition coaching? So it's kind of funny to look back. Hey?
It's pretty ironic. Yeah, I think, like, you had a moment where you're like, well, I'm miserable and I want you to be miserable too.
Yeah. And granted, I mean, I learned so much at that firm. And, like, looking back on that experience, now running a company, I'm like, wow, I sure did, like, learn a lot that actually not necessarily, I mean, even the law is a big part of owning a company. You need to kind of know how to do things, but even how to, sending emails and stuff that, like, you kind of learn in law school and university, but I don't think you really get a good grasp until you work for another company or other people.
Yeah.
At least from my experience, that's one thing that I learned.
Definitely the communication is key, and the emailing, and kind of just, like, etiquette over that.
Yeah, and professionalism.
And learning how to be super passive aggressive without people necessarily realizing it.
Yeah.
Phrases like, as previously mentioned.
Yeah.
Kind regards.
Yeah.
These are things that you learn when you work for an organization, when you need to give someone the middle finger over email, but you need them,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think, I don't know, the more, with all this stuff coming out with CrossFit in the past couple of weeks now, like, and it's been going this direction for me where I'm like, okay, I'm finding myself, I feel like I have less and less in common with the people that are at the center of the sport, whereas a couple of years ago, like, I was in it, and it was kind of my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against those people, it's just, I find that I'm beginning to value my experiences outside of the sport more and more. Especially the way that I see things going right now.
Yep.
So, and there are plenty of good people who are in it, and they're going to stay in it, and they love it, and they want to make it their career, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not going to be one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been nice to not have much skin in the game these past couple weeks. For sure.
Yeah.
What else?
I don't know. I can't. It's kind of our bit of our stories, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's funny, like, you still, like, we've been together for what, like
3 years,
3.5-ish.
Is it 3.5?
Well, if you count January.
Okay.
It just depends on when you start.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like classic lesbian.
Oh yeah, it is. It's like, almost 3.5. Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, right now, just to paint a picture of how alike we are sitting here podcasting in matching tank tops. They're the same tank top, but different color. Not tactic tank tops. They're like ones we bought in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We both have, like, ratty old shorts and matching wool socks. Or not matching. They're not matching, but they're both wool socks.
I mean, comfort is important.
Yeah. I like that about us.
No bra.
No bra, of course not.
Your whole left boob has been out for the majority of this podcast. So
the tank is baggy.
It's flowy. And it's extra baggy because Alex gets, like, a size large. Which means that, like, nip slip is a real issue for her. But that's okay, I don't mind.
Okay, funny story. So the other day, just to end off on, speaking of nip slips, I was plucking my eyebrows, and I use this little mirror that you plug onto the window.
Yeah.
So that you can use the natural light to like really, see what's going on.
I mean, I get mine waxed, but that's fine.
So I was doing that, and when I was had come out of the shower, and so I was just like standing there without a shirt on in front of the window.
Oh my God, I didn't know you were doing
and
that.
I was like, at one point, I was like, wait a second. I was like seeing cars drive by, and I was like, holy shit! Like, can people see?
You definitely can. Like I've driven in the back because the blinds are open, and I often think like.
I was wondering why all these cars were doing U-turns and circling back around,
crashing into each other. Oh my God.
Yeah, so
wow.
I didn't tell you that, but
no, you didn't. I'm glad you did now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Explains why all the little boys are out back.
I mean, there's not that much to look at, but
you remember that kid riding by on the bicycle the other day?
Yeah.
We were just like walking in the park, and this like 6-year-old kid, he looks like Paul Tremblay's kid.
Yeah.
That Felix's age.
Yeah.
Just rides by and says, "Hey girls." And I was like, I am so flattered. That just like literally made my day. This like little boy.
Yeah.
But anywho. Yeah, so that's kind of our story.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're doing all right, I guess.
Yeah, we're making it.
Kind of continue to learn about each other as we go. Like, what have you learned about me in the past month?
I don't know. I think it's more like the things I always knew are just being more like confirmed on a daily basis.
Like
just
what?
like that you leave things to the last minute and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm working on it. I'm working on moving past it and being the bigger person.
Meanwhile, I'm like, she is once again creating a mountain out of a molehill here. Like, that doesn't even need to get done until like Thursday.
Okay.
But that's fun.
What about me?
I don't know, probably that. Like the same thing. I'm like, you just like create stress in your life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We balance each other out.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess to end off, we are not relationship experts, but people seem interested in our stories, so we figured we'd share a little bit more. Hopefully there's something to take away, or at least you're entertained at some point.
Yeah, that's always the goal.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Thanks for listening.